all messages. All right, so we're gonna do a little bit of a hybrid thing here. And I'm talking to myself because nobody's here yet. But for future people that are rewatching this, I'm gonna do like, I think you're gonna see actually. I think I'm gonna keep the secret. No, I'm gonna do like answer a couple questions and then be like, now let's hear from our sponsor, where I talk about something that's still in the apothecary and what it's good for. Because I am my own sponsor, absolutely nobody wants me to touch their brand. Now I get offers all the time. It's just not worth it because it's always junk. Um, so that's what we're gonna do, and it's just gonna be like answer a couple questions, talk about something in the apothecary, answer a couple questions, and because I didn't want to come on here and just do another shameless like what's left in the apothecary thing, but I also, that is my reality and what I'm in the middle of right now. um, so yeah, but first we're gonna make some tea. We're gonna let some folks roll in, and then we will get going. Let me get some water going here. Way too hot for what I'm making. Okay, so there we go. um, but yeah, it's been, you guys have just like, I don't know, I'm in like shock about it. And I see that I haven't plugged my phone in. Give me a second. I like the cords in, but I see the charging block just on the ground. So let me fix that. My goodness. Okay. Fix that. That would have been fun about quarter way through and the phone just started telling me. And then if it's like low, it gets too hot to try to charge at the same time. Okay. So yeah, it has been absolutely insane. I'm kind of like, I don't know, like overwhelmed with gratitude, but also like numb from the realization and like overwhelmed and still in the midst of it. And I don't think I don't think I'll really understand the gravity of how fast it all happened until I'm through to the other end, if that makes sense. Uh, and so yeah, I think once all the dust settles, probably in the next 2 weeks, maybe. Things are going fast, and so those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm here to do a Q&A, I am, but also I started my Christmas in October sale, where everything in my apothecary is just $19.99, or any 5 things for $80, mix and match, which is basically buy 4 get 1 free. And I did not expect that. Like, I'm like 50% cleared out in 11 days. It's crazy. There are a lot of things sold out, and it's going good because people are yelling at me. They're like, "That is gone," and I wanted that. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, and I get it. It's frustrating, and but it's been going pretty crazy, and I just I don't know. It has been overwhelming to see how much the community has shown up. When I told you that, like, I need to do this to make a change, and it's just been kind of crazy, and it'll keep being crazy basically until we're done. I do have a surprise coming on November 1st. I'll probably talk about it before then. Won't talk about this early though, but I'm pretty excited about it, and I think you guys will be excited about it too. Um, so be on the lookout for me to start teasing about that. Today I'm gonna have some aged moonlight white tea because I am at the tail end of like a tiny cold. Um, it's not right, but like it's so aged, it's like considered medicine, right? So I don't bust it out all the time. So let's get this tea going, and then for those of you who are just joining, I'm going to do a really interesting like hybrid Q&A today, where I talk about, I answer a couple questions and I talk about something in the shop, and then I answer a couple questions and I talk about something in the shop, just to kind of mix it up and do something different, and help myself get to the goal where I need to be. Well, thank you so much. I got this new dress the other day. It's a little big on me, but I still like it. And this belt is fantastic. It's stretchy. It was one of those, I'm like, a belt's only like $10, so it could be awesome, or it could look nothing like the picture when it shows up, but it actually does, and it just clips like that. So I like it. It's all shiny. So yeah, I should flip this over, but yeah, it's been crazy, and I've just been keeping up with everything. Like right now, so far, we are sold out. We just sold the rosemary lion's mane. synergism capsules. We are sold out of the She Legit, the Raw Nutrient, the Wild Yam, the Pine Pollen. We're sold out of the green tea collagen cream. We're almost sold out of some books. And then I got quite a few over here that are about to be sold out that I'll talk about. Um, it has just been going crazy, absolutely crazy in the sale. And I really honestly didn't think we'd get to where we're at until like December. And it has just been, and it's not slowing down either. So it's just been kind of like, I don't know, a whirlwind is the only way that I can explain it, you know. And but yeah, I just, I don't know. It's just been interesting, and like I said, I'm having a hard time processing it. And I think that's just because I'm in the middle of it, right? Like it's hard to process something like that or something like this, especially because like my inner narrative, while it's not horrible, it's also very human, right? Where you make these plans and you're like, oh fuck, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. You think you're gonna do this and you're gonna make the wrong decision, all that type of shit that can go on in your brain. And and I often prove myself wrong, and every time you hear that, it's somebody calling something home from the shop. And I am leaving that on because I am shamelessly going to talk about stuff while I do the Q&A. And so one person just asked, will you get more face cream while it's on sale? No, I am not realistically going to restock anything until after the holidays. And even if I could, like, I can't sell it at the same price. Like right now it's like 53% off, and I'm not making a whole lot of profit off of it. And so once I restock after the holidays, everything will go back to its normal price. And so it just wouldn't be a wise business decision to have a bunch of stuff put into production for me, like while it's like crazy on sale. And so it is just I don't know. It's crazy. And I know things are sold out, and I know it's a bummer. I do have a surprise coming on the 1st I think people will like, and I'll talk about it when it gets a little closer to that time. But cause I don't want to, I want to make sure that I pull it off first before I say anything about it, but I think I'm going to. This person says, hi, my midwife friends love your videos. I'm glad to hear that. I used to want to be a midwife when I was younger, and then I had a really, really violent birth. I was like, nope. I used to also talk about being a lactation consultant, but I just never. I was like 17, and I read like every Ina May Gaskin book there was that I could get the college to order for me. Order in the free books so you can rent them, and yeah, and then I just had a horrible birth, and everything didn't go how I had planned it. So, because it was a horrible doctor, so trauma made me be like, I don't really want to be around any of that. Oh, this smells so nice. It's such a nice treat most of the time. Although sometimes I beat myself up if I do a long Q&A because tea is pretty high tannin, so it's a little drying on my throat versus, moisturizing while I talk too much. It's real nice and tasty though. Okay, so this is going to be a hybrid thing. If you have a question, say question, and I'll start answering your questions. And then every couple questions, I'm going to pause and be like, and today, your sponsor, who is me, I was going to talk about something in the apothecary. And I think that would be just kind of like a nice way to like break up the rhythm. I can, give you free information and shamelessly say, hey, have you checked out my apothecary sale right now? So I think it's a pretty good in between. Question, best herbs for heavy menstrual bleeding? Thanks. Yeah, I mean, you could work with something like shepherd's purse tincture to slow the bleeding down, but usually, and you could use like tannins, like let's say, like of course, like the raspberry leaf, blackberry leaf, anything like that is going to have tannins, and it's going to help slow the bleeding some. But usually, I suspect that you need more vitamin K1 and K2 in your life, and so K1 comes from well-cooked leafy greens, and K2 comes from grass-fed animal fats. If they're not grass-fed, like truly, there won't be much K2 in them because they're not eating the grass to convert the K1 into K2. You could just supplement it that way as well. It'll probably help slow the bleeding down. Shepherd's purse works decently, but the only thing that I really don't like about it, and it made me kind of creep out, is that it can slow it in a different way where you end up with just like really big blood clots, and I don't like that. I don't like that. So I usually only use it if there's like a dangerous bleeding amount. So I would just consider working with like a K1 or K2 supplement. And again, you could also work in foods and stuff too, but usually when we're low, it's a good idea to like supplement and then also start adding that stuff into our diet, right? So your body gets what it needs and you start shifting your dietary intakes towards it. So, um, question, anything other than ashwagandha and D3 that helps suppress your estrogen? Yeah, I wouldn't rely on ashwagandha or vitamin D3 for that. So let's not think about it as suppressing your estrogen so much as making it go through the right pathways. You could start working with chamomile tincture, would work really well. Tea's okay, tincture is the best. It has apigean in it, and that is like a chemical compound that basically mitigates how your body is using estrogen. It uptakes your E1 receptors, which is the positive estrogen that you need, and it downregulates your E2 receptors, which is the like the bad estrogen that makes you have symptoms and feeds cancer and stuff like that. And then, of course, working with vitamin E is a good option. Vitamin E rich foods. But really it's all about like helping that balance, and you could work with something like pine pollen as well. I would stay away from wild yam unless you are using something to block that conversion into estrogen versus everything else. When you're estrogen dominant and you use something that has like a precursor to DHEA, what'll happen is it will automatically just turn it into more estrogen, even if you need more progesterone or testosterone. It's just kind of like an imbalance thing. Sometimes I think about it, and I always talk about it with my husband. So I live in Northeast Oregon, and we are near the Columbia River. And what's a trip about the Columbia River is it's like this massive river in the United States. It's like the deepest one or something like that. And you'd think that it would be all lush and green around it, but almost all of it's the desert because we're like in high mountain desert area, and it doesn't really get very green until you get really close to the coast. And my theory always has been it's so big that it just pulls the water from the surroundings. It's so encompassing that it's just like it doesn't let any other water exist. It just pulls it all to it. And I kind of think about estrogen dominance that way. You have so much estrogen dominance that anytime you try to take anything that might be turned into any other hormone, it just gets converted into more estrogen. So that cha-ching means somebody called something home for my shop, and I'm going to start talking about one thing, and then I'll jump back into the questions. So one thing that is about to sell out is my elderberry turkey tail mushroom synergism capsules, and I've never been my own sponsor, so bear with me. At least I can't fire myself for, not acting professional. um, Elderberry turkey tail is a fantastic option if you want to fight off like the yuck that's going around. For example, I take this on a consistent basis and I barely got the littlest of cold, whereas my husband doesn't take it and he's pretty sick. Now you should know that like I'm not shipping any of this stuff to you. I have a ship fulfillment company, so I'm not like spitting on something and sending it your way. But if you are looking to support your natural immune functions, I really like turkey tail mushroom because she's an immune modulator, meaning if your immune system is too high, which would cause you more symptoms when you're sick, or if your immune system is too low, which is why you're always getting sick, she can bring it up to the center, which is good because elderberry just stimulates, right? So if you take elderberry after you've gotten sick and you haven't been taking her, your symptoms can actually get worse because you're not sick from whatever it is you caught. You're sick from your immune system's reaction to it. Right. And so if suddenly you ramp up your immune system, your symptoms get worse. But if you start taking this before you get sick, odds are good you won't get very sick at all, or it won't last as long. Now, every one of these bottles, this one I thought it was open, but apparently she's not, comes sealed for your safety. But every one of my synergism capsules, it's pretty great because you only have to take one. So this is an herbal microdose, which means every bottle lasts you 2 months, and it's just one pill a day. And right now, they are all on sale for just $19.99. Or mix and match any 5 for $80, which is basically buy four get one free. You can follow the link that my admin is dropping, or that I'll have pinned in the comment section or description if you're watching in the future. And that is my elderberry plus turkey tail mushroom synergism capsules. And this one is almost gone. Before I came live, there was only like 100 or so left, and I know that sounds like a lot, but you need to understand that we are like selling out of like things that were in stock in the thousands, which this one was, and now there's only a few hundred left, less than that, like 110 or something. So that is my elderberry turkey tail mushroom. Okay, now I'll answer a question or two and then get back to that. So we're gonna kind of pick this rhythm up together, guys. So question, so would that be good for autoimmune conditions? No, because the elderberry is still going to stimulate your immune system. But if you want to start working, if you are a person that's living with an autoimmune disease, well, it also kind of depends. It's so many nuances here. If your autoimmune makes it to where your immune system is really low, it could be supportive. But most people's autoimmune means their immune system is overreactive and attacking something in your body that it's not supposed to. So if you took something that stimulated your immune system, it would make things worse. But you could decide to just work with turkey tail mushroom as an immune modulator. But I would also, on side of that, if you haven't already tried LDN, which is low dose naltrexone, it is a medication, but it's super duper easy to get a prescription online these days. They have whole clinics that are just designed for it, for chronic pain, for people who have, mood issues or autoimmune, the C word, but not the C word from 2020, all that type of stuff, is really, really fantastic for supporting anybody with autoimmune issues. It's used in like super microscopic amounts. It's a really interesting and very safe medication. Okay, question. Do you have any specific recommendations for extreme ADHD, and would it be best in tincture form? Okay, so let's do a combination thing here. Uh, Off of what I have in my shop, I have my California poppy and ginkgo biloba. So I know you asked about ADHD, but we're also going to talk about OCD, because the thing to understand is they're in the same realms, right? It's your neurons are being too excited. They're doing this when they should be doing this. And so you're like, ugh. So sometimes that comes out as ADHD, or sometimes it comes on as OCD. I live with OCD. A lot of people have a misconception that it means that you turn a light on a million times and count, and there are people that live with that, but there's also a wide variety of it. Mine's all internal and shit like that. Although sometimes if I'm bad, I will wash my hands until they're like cracked and bad if I'm in a bad flare. But so the way that this is happening is you have a ton of glutamate built up in your head that isn't converting to GABA. And so, first of all, I would look into considering a lower glutamate type diet, but also supporting your GABA and dopamine function and that conversion. So, my California poppy plus ginkgo biloba would be a really good option for anybody who honestly has low moods or is dealing with ADHD or even OCD in that area. She's one that I like to use. I don't use her all the time, but I do use her in my arsenal if I start having a flare with my OCD. And basically, so what happens is the California poppy is really good at increasing GABA in your brain, which is your calming amino acid. If you don't have enough GABA in your brain, you have a lot of anxiety and anxiousness, and you can bounce around and have attention issues because you're just not calm, right? And ginkgo biloba, obviously, in your case, helps with attention, which is fantastic, helps with memory, but she also increases dopamine. Together, they're important because you don't want to raise your GABA so high that it represses your dopamine, or your dopamine so high that it represses your GABA, right? But combined, synergistically, which is why I call them synergism capsules, it balances it pretty well. So you could work with this, and that's my California poppy synergism capsule. It's only $19.99. But besides that, you could start doing things like drinking green tea, which has L-theanine. L-theanine is fantastic at lowering glutamate levels in your brain and increasing its conversion into GABA. You could work with real lavender. That's another good option. You could also work with chamomile. These things are going to help convert that excessive amount of glutamate in your brain into GABA acid. What's really interesting, if you start digging into the symptoms of glutamate, really it's like if you have high glutamate plus this deficiency, it can look like schizophrenia. Or if it's this plus this, it could be OCD. Or this plus this, it can be ADHD. There's a ton of research on it, and it gets buried because it's easier for them to just give you a medication, right? It's really interesting stuff. So, okay, question. Should I share my usnea tincture with my elderly neighbor who is being treated for a slow growing form of lung cancer? I've made many tinctures from your videos. What else could I offer? You could. I wouldn't really find it very specifically supportive for that instance. I would be way more interested in offering her turkey tail mushroom, anything, tincture, tea, whatever. You could also consider looking into IP6 gold. IP6 is just a natural like nutrient that called phytic acid that we've demonized since Sally Fallon put out a pamphlet forever ago but never updated her research. It's actually really anti-cancerous. It's amazing. It used to be found in like all the bread and everything we ate, but now they defitalize all of our grains so they can add fake nutrients to it. Because the phytic acid will block you from getting the crappy nutrients they add to it. It won't stick to the grain, and so they take it out of it, and it's been a big detriment to our life. But that is something that you could maybe research and give her information on. Reishi mushroom is another really good option if I was dealing with lung issues. But definitely look into the IP6. Anybody who's dealing with cancer, anything like that, there are real studies about it, and it is actually being used as a treatment in other countries. A lot of research coming out of Japan. It's really interesting. Question: what would you recommend for psoriasis? I ordered live kefir cultures recently, but any additional tips would be appreciated. Yeah, I mean, the kefir, really, that's going to be your answer. You're going to wait for that kefir to come to life. You're going to start slowly working on it, whether it's the milk kefir or the water kefir. Milk kefir is preferred, water kefir is still a good option. And really start looking at your liver. Start looking at and supporting your liver. Start working with like roasted dandelion root. Now you can do milk thistle. People like milk thistle for liver support, but you got to go really slow or it makes you feel gross, right? And I just think that dandelion is a bit more gentle and more likely to be used on a consistent basis because it's food based. You can make like roasted dandelion root tea every morning, right? But also make sure that you're getting all the rancid seed oils out of your diet. They're sneaky, and I know right now it's really weird because everyone's like, oh, that's just the, I'm like, no, this is a thing, and a lot of us have known about it for a long time, but now they politicized it, so it like makes people fight over it, but it's true. You don't want these seed oils in your diet. You do want PUFA oils in your diet from naturally occurring sources like, like fish and nuts and things like that, because nature doesn't make a mistake, but man does all the time. And so when you make it and it goes rancid, it oxidizes in your body, and then it's really hard on your liver, and you get things like psoriasis. Topically, you could start working with like a plantain salve, maybe also like comfrey as well. If it's really itchy, make yourself an infused chamomile oil. That would probably help. And so it's like you can work on calming it on the outside, but whenever we have an issue like psoriasis or even eczema, acne, all that stuff is a reflection of what's happening inside of our body. And remember that your skin is your largest organ, so it's trying to give you a hint as to what's going on. But psoriasis and eczema are always usually like it's gut health, liver, it's that whole little axis area. So the milk kefir or the water kefir is probably going to go a really long way for you. Let's see. Question about encouraging healthy hair growth, please. Recently had hair loss due to low iron levels. Hair loss in women is almost always caused from a nutritional deficiency or high stress or thyroid issues. And so all those things can be supported by getting more organ meats into your life. Like cooking with heart is tasty. If you can't handle it, you could grind it into hamburger so it's just like a normal burger. Making sure that you're getting liver in your diet at least once a week. You can take the supplements if you want to. It's better to learn how to cook it. It's just going to be more bioavailable and less oxidized, if that makes sense, than the capsules. But also making sure that you're looking into maybe nourishing herbal infusions and getting plenty of like red meat in your diet. But also keep in mind that usually when we have low iron, it might actually be low copper. So make sure that you're getting plenty of seafood, high quality chocolate, real oranges. The stuff at the store doesn't have copper left in it much anymore because it's been so processed, and a lot of vitamin C is denatured anyways. So those things would go a long way to helping your hair regrow. Topically, you could do rosemary, like water that's been infused with real rosemary, not essential oil, and aspirin. I know that sounds funny, but if you put those two things together and then you dump it over your hair every other day and let it dry down, like do it before bed, let it stay, rinse it off in the morning. Both of those things will stimulate follicle growth. Okay. Yeah, so it's crazy. It's really interesting how like men can go bald from genetics, and that can happen to women too, but not as often. But most of the time with men, it's like they have really high prolactin levels and low testosterone, so they start shedding hair. Okay, so question: do you have any suggestions for navigating periodontitis? I have made a do you mean like a Tulsi tincture? How to dilute for mouthwash? Other suggestions? Yeah, Tulsi wouldn't be. I mean, you can. The only thing that Tulsi would do, used as a mouthwash for any sort of gum disease, would be slightly amount of alcohol added. Tulsi's more about like supporting like stress support and like your like some hormones, thyroid function, things like that. Mainly cortisol. So if you want to heal your teeth and your gums, you need yarrow tincture. That'll really help. And I wouldn't dilute it. I would brush your teeth like normal, and then you could add after you're done, add just yarrow tincture, to, not essential oil. That'll make it worse. It'll kill the good bacteria in your mouth and attack your enamel and all that type of stuff. But tincture, yarrow tincture on your toothbrush, and then just brush, leave it on, and that will help kill the gram-positive bacteria. But yarrow is also a styptic, so she helps with bleeding. But yarrow also um, stimulates new gum tissue to grow. It's really amazing stuff, which is why, and this is a pretty cool lineup, folks. I didn't even do it on purpose. Which is why I have yarrow in all of my mouth muds. So mouth mud is a toothpaste alternative, which is funny because all toothpaste used to be a powder until they came along with the full of chemicals paste version. So I have my mouth mud mint. I have my mouth mud charcoal, and I have my mouth mud original. If you go and read the original, there's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of 5-star reviews because I've been making it and selling it to people for over a decade now. And so my mouth mud is really fantastic for anybody who's looking to push back against plaque buildup, bacterial issues, if you've got sensitivity, if your gums aren't happy, if your gums aren't healthy, if you're trying to get away from chemicals, fluoride, SLC, foaming agents, and crap like that, and if you're tired of feeling like you got kicked in the face by mint flavored horse, right? Because there's so much essential oil in all toothpaste, by the way. And I know that for a fact, not just because I've studied it extensively, but we live somewhere where they grow mint to harvest, spearmint particularly, to harvest it for it, and even the smell of driving past those fields is overwhelming, right? So, but you can go check out the original in particular. Is there's tons of reviews where people are talking about it for gum disease and stuff like that. Now, the only difference between the blends is the charcoal variety is a little bit more whitening. The mint variety has real mint. This is real herbs in this. Has a very light mint flavor. The original one is a little bit more clovey flavored, although they all have that real clove and yarrow. I also work with birch-based xylitol. Don't freak out. It's literally a natural ingredient. I wouldn't use it as a sugar substitute personally, but studies have shown that for oral health, it's amazing. It starves the bacteria that builds plaque in your mouth, and if you're like, oh, I don't know, well, the indigenous people knew because they would chew on birch bark, the northern tribes. They would chew on birch bark because they realized it kept their teeth cleaner and then didn't have buildup, and that was because of the xylitol content. But there's also things in here like USP grade kaolin clay, a tiny amount of baking soda, and really like enamel supportive calcium and things like that. And I lab test all of my formulas. Every single one gets a lab test, so I know for a fact that there are no dangerous levels of heavy metal here. So these are my mouth muds, and they're all on sale for just $19.99, which is like crazy cheap. It's like 53% off. You can get them 5 for 80, or you can just get one of these and mix and match, and that's basically buy 4 get 1 free of anything in the apothecary, and that includes my books. Okay, I'm putting the stuff I've talked about in a box. That is my April only talks about it once box for my own self-care. Now answer a couple questions here. All right. Let's see. Question, will castor oil break down the cysts on my breast tissue? Yeah, that's a really good question, and you're right on track there. Castor oil is pretty good for breaking up cystic tissue in the breast. It takes time. You can do castor oil packs, but it would probably be easier to cut it with a little bit of something like let's say like avocado oil or maybe olive oil, so it's not castor oil. My husband calls it the devil's oil because when you get it on you, it's like thick and sticky and it goes everywhere, and you might not want to use that every day on your breast because like psychologically you might just not enjoy it. But if you cut it with a little bit of different oil, it won't be so sticky and it will be easier to rub on, and you're more likely to use it, and that's better than not using it. And then you could get creative. Why not buy yourself some castor oil that's hexane free? That's important. And then pour over some dried chickweed. And if you want to get real fancy, find yourself some dried violet leaf, although that's harder to find, but you could harvest some in the spring for the next batch you make. And then let that sit in a warm, dark place. I like to use a seed heating mat, right? The thing you use to start seeds in the springtime. Right now they're probably pretty cheap, and you can get them on Amazon for like 20 bucks, probably a little small one. Don't need a big one. Sit it on there, leave it there for, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks. And then when you strain it, you'll have the cyst fighting ability of the chickweed and or the violet alongside of castor oil's abilities. So when you're thinking about using castor oil for something, consider being like, is there an herb that would also support this? And then infuse that herb into the castor oil, right? And then you're doubling down and creating like a synergistic pattern. Like if you're trying to break down scar tissue, I would add calendula. If you're trying to deal with like a thick growth or something that needs to be drained, I would also add like comfrey, right? You can kind of decide what you're going to do there and just kind of get creative with it. Okay, let's see. Didn't you say rose hips have copper in them? Yeah, rose hips, you know what's really interesting? In nature, anything that has vitamin C in it naturally has copper. Nature doesn't make a mistake. I saw somebody the other day say that nature makes a mistake, so we have to take like huge amounts of like from like an orthomolecular standpoint. So they're like, you have to take like huge amounts of all these vitamins if you ever want to have optimal health because nature can't provide you with what you need. I'm like, my gosh. Like, I get the concept of where they're coming from, but it's like you'll always be chasing a nutritional imbalance because nature doesn't make a mistake. There's no one thing that is on its own, right? Like, if you take enough high dose vitamin C, like over time, eventually you will likely deplete your copper. If you take enough copper, you'll deplete your vitamin C. If you're not eating copper, there's no iron. It's kind of like all over the place like that, right? Yeah, but rose hips are a good source of copper. Okay, let's see. Gum disease needs physical removal of the buildup it causes. Yeah, no, for sure. If they still have like hard plaque on there, they've got to get that off of there. But sometimes you remove that and people still have gum disease. So, you know, it really just depends. Let's see. How do I manage healing neuropathy after trauma or grief when I have autoimmune disease? Well, usually when I think about neuropathy, which is where you get like pins and needles or burning, and usually in your hands or your feet, it can show up anywhere, but it's usually in your further extremities. I'm always really, really, really suspicious of a B12 deficiency. Sometimes it can be B1, which is thiamine, but B12 is something that you should rule out, as well as magnesium, actually. But B12 is really, really underdiagnosed. You'll get a magnesium panel every now and then from a doctor, but a doctor will never test your B12 unless you force them to. It's absolutely gross negligence, in my opinion. But the thing to know is when you're really stressed out, which can come from trauma, or you're surrounded by mold, or this or this or that, your body uses B12 a lot. and it's a water-soluble vitamin. So if you're not eating enough in a day, or even if you are, you might not be getting it into your cells, and you piss out the extra. It's a lot like vitamin C, where we're meant to take in an amount every day. So that is something to consider getting tested. And remember, if you're already supplementing, the test is a waste of money, because it's like even standards to like, once you have taken B12, the test doesn't really work for the next 5 months because it can be artificially elevated. People with pernicious anemia have to fight that all the time. It's a type of anemia that involves B12, and your gut attacks it. And so basically, they're told, oh, your B12 levels are really high. You need to stop taking it. But it doesn't get into their cells. So it's like telling them to stop taking the thing that's saving their life. And usually they have to do injections. It's pretty gross, but it's something to look into for anybody who has neuropathy. Especially if it's in your, like, if you have a neuropathy or pain that goes straight into your big toe or sciatica, B12. To the point where they'll give you B12 shots for sciatica and be like, that helped. It must have been resolved with sciatica. I'm like, yeah, but you had sciatica because you got low B12. It's just a thing. Okay, so let's see. Let me jump down here to a question. How bad is caffeine to drink around the same time as taking my thyroid pill? No other medicines taken. I'm very healthy. Caffeine, so you're doubling down there. The really thing to be concerned with is they say not to take calcium alongside your thyroid medication. So if you're adding dairy to your coffee, it can kind of block the thyroid uptake. So I would consider spacing that out if you can, or learning to love black coffee. Or I guess you could use a dairy alternative, but try to find one that's not full of rancid seed oils. That'll just make your thyroid unhappier. But the thing to know about both of those substances is that coffee stimulates thyroid function, and by proxy your liver function. And if you are not taking in enough carbohydrates, your body will constantly be in a stressed out mode, because it's trying to make all this glucose for when you sleep at night. Your liver doesn't just like process sugar and it's never in you anymore. It spends all day trying to store up glucose to help you get through an 8-hour fast while you sleep. Why a lot of people wake up at 3 a.m. and they run out of glucose and their cortisol spikes, right? So you need to make sure that it's preferable if you ate with your coffee. But you're taking thyroid and you're taking coffee at the same time will really get you up and running. So I would consider like not skipping breakfast if possible, or making sure that you're getting plenty of carbohydrates throughout the day. And I'm not saying to eat like pure sugar or junk food. I'm talking, like fruit and like root vegetables and like starchy things like grains, whatever, like real food. People get so afraid of carbohydrates these days, but we really do need them. So that sound was somebody calling something home from the shop. So let me talk about, speaking of sleep, I don't mean to keep making this happen. I'm just that cool. Okay, so speaking of sleep, if anybody here is struggling with sleep, my skull cap plus valerian root synergism capsules are about sold out. They're the next thing to go here in probably the next day or so with how fast they're moving. And if you are somebody who wakes up in the middle of the night or has a hard time falling back to sleep, this is a fantastic supportive option for you. Now, the thing to know is people always overdo it on skull cap. They take some sleepy time tea or this or that, and then they get knocked out. But you're not really sleeping so much as you're passed out, and you wake up and you feel groggy or nauseated, and you're dragging throughout the day, and then you have to drink a ton of coffee, and then that makes your sleep worse the next night, and it just becomes like this vicious cycle, right? So I use a microdosed amount of skull cap here alongside of a microdosed amount of valerian root, right? And so what happens here is that it helps you feel sleepy enough to naturally fall asleep, because it is opposing your cortisol levels. So in your body, there are all types of hormones. And one of them is cortisol, which is a stress hormone, but it also, keeps you functioning and awake and alive, and you need it. And one of them is also melatonin, which is another important hormone that helps you wind down. When you are sleepy at night, it's because your cortisol is dropping and your melatonin is rising. And when you wake up at 3 in the morning, usually it's because you didn't eat enough throughout the day, not enough carbohydrates anyways. And what happens is suddenly your blood sugar sugar says, oh my God, I have to like make sure that they're not starving. So I start eating their muscles and I use cortisol to do that, and it pushes down your melatonin. Or even if you sleep through the night, the reason that you wake up in the morning is because your cortisol naturally started to rise with your circadian rhythm, which pushed down the melatonin. Right. So if you are somebody who is looking to help yourself fall asleep versus knock yourself out, not feel super gross in the morning, support your stress levels, and that's why I like Skullcap here too. She's a really powerful nervine that really helps your whole like system just readjust to stress. And so combined, they're pretty fantastic. And again, I'm having a crazy sale right now. So everything in the apothecary is just $19.99, which is like 53% off, or buy any 5 for 100, or buy 4 for 80. There it is. My brain. It's 4 for 80. Our free shipping kicks in at 100, and my brain jumped ahead of itself. But yeah, so it's basically, buy 4 get 1 free is what it is, and you can mix and match across all. You don't have to buy just 4 bottles of this to get that deal. So this is my Skullcap valerian root, and you can follow the link that my admin, which is also my daughter, is dropping here. Or if you're a future person, hey, hi, how you doing, you can click on the link in the description or the pinned comments. Okay, so let's see. Let's scroll down here and find a question. Oh, thank you so much for the superstar pills. Thank you, by the way. I ordered your books and can't wait to get them. Also, would love to look at your astro chart if you're willing to share birth info. Yeah, I mean, I can do that. My shit's weird. I've already looked at it. I'm like a Cancer moon, Cancer sun, and I was born on like some fucking crazy rare alignment. But I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not super into this stuff, but also I don't know. It's just interesting stuff. But thank you so much, and I'm glad you got some of the books because those are selling fast. Pretty soon I'll be out of a couple of the Common Ways series. And what happens when that sells out is that I have to take down some of the book bundles because I can't sell the bundles if I'm sold out of part of what goes in the bundle. And I'm not reprinting the books until after the holiday sale, so it's definitely something to grab onto. Okay, so let's see. Let me scroll down here. Question: trying to get pregnant. Any recommendations? Yeah. So when you're trying to get pregnant, your body wants to feel like it's safe enough to get pregnant. And we could also like look at that from like a psychological standpoint, but I mean from like a nutritional base. If you felt so inclined, I would look into like I know I talked about her earlier against phytic acid, but Sally Fallon does have like a Nourishing Traditions book. Even looking into like the Weston Price style type of eating and doing that for a year on top of herbal nourishing and infusions would probably get your fertility on track. Because you've really got to come from a place of nutrition. Now, I know some people just get pregnant at the drop of a hat, and that can happen too, and they can end up really depleted afterwards. It takes a lot to create a little human in your body, right? And so, if anybody is struggling with nutrition, even with fertility, even men, I would highly suggest looking at your diet and getting back to like real whole traditional animal based type eating and really just nourishing your whole being, because then it's like, oh hey, we have excess to make a baby. And then by the way, what's really interesting is they've done a bunch of studies where they show like even like the cranial difference in the babies for women who eat like that, like before and during pregnancy, versus women who don't. And it shows a far more defined jaw structure. They almost never have crooked teeth, anything like that. It's really, really interesting stuff. And I didn't know about that before I like kind of just did it with my kids, because that's just what we had access to, was like tons of deer meat and fish, and that's just like what we had, like on top of like veggies and cheese and things like that. And both of my kids, they come out with really strong jaws and they don't have crooked teeth at all. My daughter had an extra tooth, but it wasn't crooked. It came down perfectly straight on top of the other one, but yeah, it's really interesting stuff. And I would also make sure to do the nourishing herbal infusions, and you could rotate the red clover through that. I have a ton of videos on all of those, and they're easy to do. Okay, so let's see. Go on and look at. Remember to say question if you have a question, because then I see that it's a question because there's lots of comments here. My oncologist put me on B12 for neuropathy caused from chemo, and it worked. Yeah, well, I'm not surprised because that chemo would have knocked all the B12 out of your body, right? And I'm really glad that you had a doctor that was smart enough to do that. It's crazy how hard people have to fight for it. Join any of the B12 deficiency groups on Facebook and you'll just be disgusted by the medical industry and their lack of knowledge about nutrition. I really think that doctors in America and everywhere should have to go through like some extensive nutritional training to be a doctor, especially if they're going to be like a general practitioner where they're just like dealing with like all types of illnesses. They should know. They should know about these deficiencies because a lot of these deficiencies cause the illness, right? It's crazy. It's crazy that they don't, you know? Okay, so question. Do you have any recommendations for bad memory? I live a stressful life and I'm too young to have such a bad memory. Yeah, well, stress is probably a huge contributor. And I know, believe me, that you can't always just like poof, stress is gone, right? But trying to find ways to mitigate that and make little tiny changes that would allow you to eventually let go of some of that stress or adapt to it better would go a long way. It could also work alongside of like rosemary and lion's mane. Both of those together would work really well. I had a synergism capsule for that, but I'm all sold out. But you can combine them like rosemary tea, rosemary tincture. I wouldn't do essential oils. I would do real rosemary because you want the plant in its whole form with all of its compounds, not just some isolated ones. And then lion's mane mushroom is pretty good. Now, together, what happens is the rosemary stimulates blood flow to your brain, and the lion's mane stimulates neuron production. But I would also consider working with something like motherwort, maybe lavender, something to help you cope with the stress, right? So you probably have really high cortisol levels, and then the stress tanks nutrients like the B12, vitamin C, magnesium, all the things being low can also contribute to memory issues. Okay, let's talk about something in the shop, and I'm just gonna keep taking these wins. So I have my motherwort and lavender synergism capsules. These ones are going pretty fast. They are fantastic for anybody who feels like they need to step back from stress a little bit, right? The thing I really like about motherwort is she doesn't really sedate you so much as she allows you to like step back from the situation and see it. And she's very feels like getting a hug, like this is okay. Let's think it through. I really like motherwort for that, but then I combine her with real lavender because we also need that little edge of calm that motherwort might not necessarily give. So if you're somebody who is living in a high stress situation that you can't quite get out of yet, if you are somebody who just needs a reset, or you're dealing with burnout, or you're anxious all the time, my motherwort lavender synergism capsules are a great option. And again, all of my synergism capsules, it's just one pill a day. You don't have to take handfuls, which means that this bottle, which is on sale for just $19.99, will literally last you 2 months. If somebody wants to do the math for me, that's probably like a few pennies a day for how long it lasts, right? And everything right now is just $19.99 at Apothecary, or get any four for $80. So those are my motherwort lavender synergism capsules, and they're a fantastic option for anybody who is looking to deal with stress. Okay, so let me go down here. Let's see. Question on subscriptions. Yeah, I know people are really worried about this. Question on subscriptions that are ongoing and now sold out. When would I expect shipment? Actually, I didn't get it during the sale. Figured I'd wait till it cycled around on subscription. If your subscription for the synergism capsules have sold out, the system automatically pauses it, right? So you're not going to be like billed or anything like that. And then the moment that we restock, it will send you a notice and unpause it, right? So, and that should be around like the end of the holidays, maybe a little sooner. It just depends. Right now, we're in talks with Beehive Botanicals to take all the pressure off of my plate, and as soon as that wraps up by the end of the month, I think they might jump into production before Right, so right now it's like all up in the air. I'm like existing in this big limbo of like seeing if they're taking over or if I'm continuing in a different way. Like, and so, but yeah, when it gets restocked, it'll unpause. Okay, and anybody who does have a subscription still in stock during the sale, currently you're getting the 19.99 sale price with 10% off. Most of the time, people get 20% off their subscription, but it'll go back to that during when the sale's over, right? So right now it's 10% off, but it's 10% off of $20. So it's still way less than people were paying for the normal subscription. Okay, question. Fighting UTI bacteria, cranberry, corn silk, thyme, what combo is best? I'm just having a good day. I'm just going to say it all around because I got you covered. You don't even have to use it from me, but I'm going to tell you what'll work. So cranberry is pretty good because it does have D-mannose in it, but you better be drinking straight cranberry, not the cranberry from like concentrate from the store. You need like pure cranberry juice for it to still have the D-mannose in it. Corn silk is also a fantastic idea. I combine whole onion with corn silk and D-mannose, which is what is in the cranberry, right? So whole onion, you're like, what? So when you get a UTI, most of the time they give you a sulfa-based drug, sulfur, right? Because that kills the bacteria that's causing it. And why do onions make us cry? They have a lot of sulfur compounds in them. So they are a really fantastic option for anybody who's dealing with chronic UTIs, bladder infections, grumpy kidneys from infections, not CKD. But then you combine that with the corn silk, which is also going to be really calming and cooling to your bladder and like burning and everything like that, right? And then you've got the D-mannose. Now, D-mannose is pretty cool. You do need a fair amount of it, which is why I go with the pure extracted D-mannose versus just the cranberry here. D-mannose is a type of sugar. Don't freak out. It doesn't really act like sugar in your body. That basically is electrically charged and makes the bacteria bind to it. So as it passes through your kidneys and down and then you pee it out, what happens is you actually are binding to the bacteria that's there and pissing it out. So the whole onion is killing it, the corn silk is calming it, and the D-mannose is trapping it and helping you flush it out. And so you can take just one of these a day. Just one of these a day, and each bottle will last you 2 months, and it will really help push back against those chronic UTIs or bladder infections. Actually, there's somebody who has cystitis. I always say it wrong. It burns even though they don't have an infection, and it hurts really bad. That they have found a little bit of relief with using this. So even if you don't get these from me, those are the things that I would work with. And then, you know, if you have like an active infection right now that you're trying to battle, you could go on down to like Walmart or Rite Aid or whatever you have around you, and you could probably find D-mannose as a supplement. Try to find one that's not full of like horrible fillers. Sometimes if you find it in just the powder form versus the capsule form, it'll be a lot cleaner that way. Okay, so, and if you want to check out anything that I'm shamelessly talking about, make sure that you go to sheisofthewoods.org or follow the link that my admin is dropping. And if you're a future person, the comment section will have the link pinned in it, or it'll probably be in the description as well. Okay, so question, this is an interesting question. Do you have any knowledge of the T4 T3 relationship being blocked by copper deficiency? Not particularly, but I could see how that would work because copper plays an important role in thyroid function, right? It's all interconnected. Like copper is really important for your thyroid, but so is vitamin C. And so if you were low, I could see how that would block it because you wouldn't be adequately like transferring one to the other, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm all in. I can research it more, but yeah, I don't doubt that it's related. Anybody who also has histamine issues, mast cell would also be dealing with the same thing, where they have the copper deficiency as well as a really unhappy thyroid. If you want to know if your thyroid is happy or not, and you're not on thyroid medication, get yourself a thermometer. type you put under your tongue, right? When you wake up in the morning, check your body temperature. It's probably going to be below 98.6, which is normal for waking up. But if after you eat breakfast, it's still below 98.6, your thyroid's not happy. We actually have an epidemic that you probably don't know about where they're like everybody's body temperature is like 2 to 3 points below what it was like decades ago. It's your thyroid. Thyroid's not happy. So, keep that thyroid. And then if you're hyperthyroid, where your thyroid is too overactive, you'll always be over that. You'll be like 99. You'll just be like edging. You'll be like edging a fever constantly, and that's because your thyroid is overactive. It's a really, really good functional way to look at what your body's doing. Let's see. Question. I've been sick for 2 years, and they said I need my gallbladder out. It's causing pancreatitis from sludge. Anything you can think of to help? Well, you really have to start working on your gallbladder function and like binding up that bile that you're dealing with, and that's causing the sludge. So most of the time when we have gallbladder issues, it's because we actually weren't making enough bile and or we were recycling too much of it. So for those of you who don't know, what your body does is you eat something, it causes cholesterol in your body, which you need. Your liver grabs that cholesterol and it turns it into bile acid in your stomach, right? And then when you eat food, that gets digested by the bile, it goes down, you're supposed to shit it out, but then what happens is your body recycles some of that bile back up into your liver so it can extract out the nutrients, particularly the fat soluble vitamins like A, K, D, E, right? And it can do other vitamins as well, but that's mainly what it's working on getting back up there. But the trick is you're supposed to shit out a fair amount of that bile, but people don't eat as much like fiber and binding fibers as they should, right? Because we're all told that carbs are bad for us, or that beans are bad for you, or that this is bad for you, and that you should just eat leafy greens. But leafy greens and green vegetables don't have any sort of binding beta-glucans in them. They're a bulking fiber, not a binding fiber. So I would really, really start eating well-cooked beans. I would eat oatmeal, which is a very high source of beta-glucans. I would work with well-cooked mushrooms. Mushrooms have a high level of beta-glucans. And then you could start supplementing with something like chitosan, which is actually made from shrimp shells, but it's a bile binding agent. And what's going to happen is you're going to start shitting out all your bile. Hear me out. You're going to shit out all this old bile that's probably toxic and full of all kinds of excess hormones and mold and heavy metal, because that's what's happening to people right now. You can look into the toxic bile theory if you'd like. But then you shit it out, your body will make new cholesterol, and what will happen is eventually, because your liver is taking that bile back up and putting it into your gallbladder is putting it into your stomach, and it's going back down and around and up, you get fresh bile and you start pushing that sludge out of there. I would also start working heavily with things like dandelion root, getting a very, very high quality olive oil that's almost in the medicinal realms is pretty good for your gallbladder. The stuff at the store is mostly cut with rancid seed oils and they don't tell you. So you have to find like an insane quality online. They'll almost sell it like it's a medicine. It'll just be a little bottle and you'll just take tiny amounts of it. Working with things like apple cider vinegar, all of the bitter foods, all of the bitter herbs, and get your digestion back up and running. That's what's going on, and you don't want to mess around with it hurting your pancreas, like keeping it, like not getting it checked. So if you're honest with yourself and you don't decide to do those things, as much as it sucks, you should get your gallbladder removed, because if you're not going to deal with it or make the changes that you need to make, and this is just for everybody, not at you personally, it's just a human thing, right? What'll happen is eventually you'll damage your pancreas, and that's a lot harder to come back from than getting your gallbladder removed. So it's just something to consider. Okay, so let me talk about something for digestion. It's not necessarily in the same realms, and this isn't necessarily something I would use for gallbladder support, but I have my aged cascara plus slippery elm synergism capsules on sale right now. They're just $19.99, or you can mix and match. Why does my brain keep dropping it? I've been saying it for the past 11 days. It's like 5 for 80. Any 5 for 80. That's what it is. Any 5 for 80, which is basically buy 4, get 1 free. Thank you, brain. Free shipping kicks in at 100. But this is all about getting you to shit every day. You really do need to go to the bathroom every day. It is a good way to get that bile out of your system, especially if you are actively eating foods that bind to your bile so you can make new bile. I really love aged cascara for this. People overdo it with her, right? If you take a big amount, she's going to make you shit your brains out like any laxative will, and that's a problem. But in tiny amounts daily paired with slippery elm, she's really fantastic for gently getting you to go to the bathroom. She's fantastic for helping move out those toxins, knocking down inflammation. She has a compound in her called amodin. Amodin is an amazing antioxidant that knocks down inflammation. It's good for your immune system, lowers stress hormones, heals your gut. There's tons of research on amodin, and it sounds just like Imodium, or if you want to Google it, it's like EMODIN, just how it sounds. And it is just an amazing compound. And out of the natural sources, aged cascara bark is the highest in it. So if you have a problem with not going to the bathroom every day or constantly having stomach aches, so one way or the other, if it's going out too much or too little, I know that sounds crazy, but like sometimes you just have to calm your gut down. There are people in my reviews for this talking about it like resolving like horrendous Crohn's flares that they've been stuck in, right? There are all kinds of people sharing all kinds of information about it. But again, this is just one capsule a day. Usually I tell people to take this one in the evening because it takes about 12 hours to do its thing. So you take it, and by the time you wake up in the morning, you go to the bathroom, right? And so that is just a really fantastic way. Now, the slippery elm is in here because she's also going to help calm down the inflammation, stop things from going too fast, heal up your gut health lining. And every time you hear that cha-ching sound, somebody already called something home from the shop, and things are going fast. So if you're a future person, it's worth going and looking, but some stuff will probably be sold out, so don't dilly-dally. So you can follow the link that my admin is dropping if you're watching live, or go to sheisofthewoods.org, or follow the for future people, you can follow the pinned comment, or I'll probably have it in the description too. Feeling pretty proud of myself. I know my brain is mush because it's been like 11 days of pure chaos, and I'm in the middle of like, I've never done this before, where I've been like, hey brain, I would like you to do a Q&A, but also shift into talking about stuff for sale, and I'm back and forth. So it's a good mental exercise for different areas of my brain. Let's see. Question: how do you make your stress sore balm? You mentioned it's St. John's wort video. Yeah, so basically you make your infused St. John's wort oil with fresh but very well wilted St. John's wort blooms, and then you take that oil and you add some beeswax at a ratio you prefer, and you turn it into a lip balm. That's really all there is. And if you don't have any right now because you didn't make any this summer, you could probably hop on Etsy or somewhere and buy some St. John's wort oil to turn into a balm if you would like. But make sure that they used fresh. You need it to be fresh blooms because the hypericin that's in it, it dissipates when it dries, and then it makes it photosensitive. It's one of the very few herbs that I will work with fresh in an oil infusion because you have no choice, right? But if I could get away with using it dried, I would. Okay, so I see my daughter has had her has had her work cut out here with trolls. What am I drinking? I am drinking Moonlight White aged white tea. It's a type of green tea, but it's white tea, which means that it's harvested really early and then it's aged. Okay, let's see. Question: hey April, watching from Tasmania. 100 proof vodka, really expensive here. Is 77 proof vodka okay to use for tinctures? P.S. Hope all goes well with your health journey. Lots of love. I've never heard of 77%. That's pretty close to 80, so that should work. But just to put this out there, 100 proof vodka in the US means 50% alcohol, right? So if you have 77%, that's higher than 50%. Get it? So you're looking for 50% to make 100%. But if they have 77 proof, it's pretty close to 40%, right? Because 80 proof is 40%. But it should work. It should work. I would just let it sit a couple extra months longer. Not that you can't pull out before to use a little bit until it's done, right? But it'll get stronger the longer you let it sit. And wherever you store it, I wouldn't store it in Like, I wouldn't store it in just a tincture bottle until you were ready to use that amount of it on a consistent basis, because you have to have your tinctures at 25% alcohol by volume, and you have to assume like that you're going to have some evaporation, but you don't have much wiggle room there if you're only at like 38% with 77%. I'm trying to do math on the fly in my head. So you want to make sure that you keep it like in a tight jar like this when you're not using a small amount, because you don't want any evaporation to occur, because you'll lose your shelf stability, right? Okay, let's see. Question. I'm not gonna take that question. It's loaded. I don't want to get in a fight. Question. Question. What capsules should be avoided if we're on SSRIs and a benzo taper? Well, the SSRIs independently, I mean, if you take motherwort or lavender with them, you might end up feeling a little bit more drowsy, right? I would maybe avoid, well, I'm trying to think. So, SSRIs is jacking up your serotonin levels. So, you don't want to take an herb that increases your serotonin levels, something like St. John's wort or ashwagandha, because you can end up with serotonin syndrome, which is not fun. But I don't really fuck with herbs that cause a lot of serotonin increase, because I know that it's a stress hormone. I do to an extent, but not consistently, not over time, usually topically more than internally. Um, but so I'm not really worried about much that I have in the shop with the SSRIs, but the benzo withdrawal, that's a whole other beast you're going through right now. And I would stay away from any type of nervine. So anything that I have in my shop that is telling you that it's calming, I definitely stay away from the California poppy, because you don't want to increase GABA in your brain right now. You're already flooded with it. The motherwort lavender, those are the main ones that I would stay away from that I have left right now, because they're going to stimulate your GABA, which is what you're trying to heal, and it'll be like picking a wound. Believe me, it was hard. The years it took me to come off of it and recover from it, I couldn't use any calming nervine herb, or it would make my your withdrawal symptoms come back, and you'd get less and less of a symptom free window. So those are the things that I would avoid. Let's see. I have a question. Do you have any tips on what to eat if you have a lot of mental health issues? You know, mental health issues are super complex, and of course we have to acknowledge that there's a lot of trauma involved there. But what I hate the most is how much they ignore how much nutrition is actually involved in that. And there are a lot of studies that existed well before the pharmaceutical industry that showed that a lot of these were symptoms of a nutritional deficiency. Right, and so anytime that you are working with whole foods, your mental health is going to be better. It's going to be better because you are just getting more nutrients in general, but also you are avoiding a lot of the chemicals that are in foods that can make mental health issues worse, especially because there are like 25 different names for MSG. Monosodium glutamate is horrible. If you have ADHD, if you have bipolar, if you have OCD, if you have schizophrenia, if you have BPD, any of that shit, it is going to be a neuron exciter, which is going to make your symptoms worse, right? And so it is just not great. So I would stay away from any of that crap. I would do my best to eat a whole food diet. And as a person who used to be fucking shit in a bucket poor, like didn't have running water in the house, take a shower outside, and or not have a house type poor, I still managed off of food stamp cards to eat a pretty whole food diet, because I realized that the food lasted longer if I bought a big bag of like beans or oatmeal or whatever versus the processed stuff, right? So even if you're broke, you can start making little shifts at a time. What I don't want you to do is overwhelm yourself and walk in your kitchen or wherever and think that you have to throw everything out and replace it all new. Every time you go shopping, stick to the outside aisles as much as you can. right? The further outside aisles is the more unprocessed food. The more close you get to the center of the aisles, the more processed that food is. But also looking into nourishing herbal infusions, the Weston Price Foundation would probably be really helpful for you for food ideas of like where to even start eating whole foods. Now you might already have been responding or saying that you do eat whole foods. I really think that B vitamins are important for mental health issues most of the time. I really like brewer's yeast infusions for this. I have a video about it here on my YouTube on how to make it. It's super easy. Brewer's yeast has basically every B vitamin there is except for B12 because that comes from animal-based foods. But it is a really important factor for all sorts of mental health issues. And it's not the same as nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is lab-made, tends to have synthetic vitamins in it and lots of like mold and stuff like that. That's not really great for mental health. Brewer's yeast has been used for thousands of years as a food source because it comes from the bottom of brewing beer. You can get gluten free if you have gluten issues too, by the way. You just have to look for it because they make beer with things besides glutinous grains, right? So it's something to look into. Okay, so let me jabber about a couple different things here and then I'll get back to answering questions. I see that I'm talking for an hour already and I've got a little bit to get through over here. So I'm going to talk about 2 or 3 things and then jump back into questions. 2 or 3 things, jump back into questions so I'm not here for another 2 hours. Okay, so another thing that's going really fast, and I think I'm going to talk about 3 things all at once here, is I have my hibiscus bloom plus Ceylon cinnamon. This one is selling out pretty fast. I've only got about 200 left last I looked. And again, I know that sounds like a lot, but you need to remember that I started with like 1,000 plus of most things. So it's going, right? And if you go to my website right now, you'll see sold out, sold out, sold out on a lot of stuff. So this one is all about supporting anybody who has blood pressure issues. I really love hibiscus for this. There are studies that have shown that people who drink consistently hibiscus tea over like a 2-week period or so end up lowering their points by 10 to 20, right? And it just keeps going like that, but you might not like the taste of it or you might not be consistent enough with it. So in a synergism capsule it goes, and when you add that with the Ceylon cinnamon, we are going to really be supporting that cardiovascular function and just knocking down those blood pressure numbers. And it's just 1 capsule a day. Now if you're already on blood pressure meds, you need to be careful because you don't want to drop your pressure too low. So if you do decide to combine them, you need to keep an eye on it. But if you're somebody who's wanting to help combat it naturally, this would be a good option, supportive option alongside of like, stress management and lifestyle changes and things like that. So that is my hibiscus bloom Ceylon cinnamon. And I'm gonna blow my nose in front of you guys because I sound like a frog in my head. Okay. That's a little bit better. Now I have my hawthorn shiitake, and then one more after that. So this is my hawthorn shiitake synergism capsule. This is for anybody who's wanting to just support overall cardiovascular health. Now I know that people like hawthorn for blood pressure, and she can help with blood pressure, but it takes quite a long time for her to start making an impact on your blood pressure. And when she does, it's typically because she's toning your vascular system versus directly lowering it like the hibiscus does. So I don't really necessarily talk about her for that, but I do talk about her for supporting cardiovascular function. And when you combine her with the shiitake mushroom, you end up helping your body use cholesterol better. So if you have high bad cholesterol, she's going to help lower those levels. But I'd like to take a step back and talk about that. So I don't believe that cholesterol is bad in your body, and they have lowered the numbers of what's acceptable a lot since the 1950s, right? And obviously there's probably some financial incentive there to get you taking a medication if you think it's too, that type of thing. But also, we now know there's quite a few studies out that talk about cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, is actually trying to quench inflammation in your body. So while we want it to do its job, if you leave it unchecked, that is not great. Right, so I really like shiitake mushroom for attacking the inflammation in your body. She is really fantastic for that. So combined, they can really support that. But also, remember when I talked about binding biles earlier? Well, beta-glucans do that. And did you know that before statins came along, the main way they treated high cholesterol was with bile binders? And so they would have you take a bile binder, You would shit out the excess bile. Your liver would then pull cholesterol from your bloodstream and make more bile, and by proxy, your cholesterol went down. That's a lot safer than what they do now. Right? And so she kind of acts the same way while also helping with the inflammation. So that is my Hawthorn plus shiitake synergism capsules, and I also have this one to talk about, and that cha-ching sound you heard was somebody calling something home from the shop. So this is my maitake mushroom plus Ceylon cinnamon. Ceylon cinnamon is pretty cool. She wears a lot of different hats of what she can do in the body. And this particular combination, she is helping us support glucose and insulin levels. Maitake mushroom is pretty fantastic at that, at helping your body like regulate insulin a lot better, but also shuttling the glucose into your cells. There's a lot of information about there about maitake mushroom helping with that. When we combine her with Ceylon cinnamon, Ceylon is really amazing at regulating the starch as you're digesting it, so it's really helpful at not having those big spikes. Right. So if you have a particular meal where your blood sugar spikes the most, for some people it's a morning, some afternoon, evening, whenever, you could decide to take this before that meal, probably about half an hour before, to really support a healthy glucose response to that. I made this one in particular for my dad. He lives with type 2 diabetes. And just so you don't have to be overweight to get type 2 diabetes, right? It can literally be genetics, it can be from a broken Randall cycle, it can be from nutritional deficiencies, it can be from all kinds of stuff. But if you have a family that has a high history of type 2 diabetes, and it's not necessarily everybody is maybe obese, but even then, there are plenty of obese people that don't have type 2 diabetes, so genetics still plays a factor. So you don't actually have to have blood sugar issues to start working with this. You could work with it as like a supportive option to help lessen your odds of developing, right? And again, all of that one's already not open either. I'm going to open it. All of them are just one capsule a day. Just one capsule a day, if I can find where it opens at, is all you need to do, which means every bottle that's on sale for $19.99 right now will literally last you 2 months. So that's it. Smells like cinnamon. So that's my maitake mushroom Ceylon synergism capsules. And again, everything in the apothecary, whether it's anything I'm talking about or my books or my lash serum, any of that stuff, it's all $19.99 or 5 for 80, which is basically buy 4 get 1 free, and free shipping kicks in at $100. And you can follow the link my admin is dropping, or go directly to sheisofthewoods.org, or if you're a feature person, I'll have the comment pinned, or the website address pinned in the comments section. Oh my gosh, you guys. Thank you for letting me be a real person. Okay, so I'm going to line these up. I'm going to answer some more questions, and then I'm going to jump into like 2 things talked about at once. That way I'm pulling through here. Okay, so question. Would castor oil infused with dried cleavers help with eczema or psoriasis? My thought was to mix with tallow. Yeah, that's a pretty solid formula base. Um, is your eczema dry or wet? Some people have dry eczema where it's really like flaky and itchy, and some people have wet eczema where it's really weepy. If it was really weepy, I don't know that I would use castor oil in particular. It's very oxygen exclusive. So it could make it wetter, if that makes sense, and kind of like slough off. If you're dealing with weepy eczema, I would consider doing maybe something like a witch hazel infusion combined with the cleavers, and maybe if it's really itchy, you could add in some chamomile and then something like comfrey root, and then spraying that on topically to help kind of like dry it up, and then you could put tallow on as needed. But if it was the really dry variety, I think that's a pretty good formula. But I would add comfrey root to it. You could do comfrey leaf too. Comfrey root in this instance would be a little stronger. Okay. So how long does it take for my synergism capsules to start working? Because they're herbs, it really depends on the individual person. Some people notice it right away, and obviously it depends on the blend that you're using, right? Some are more long-term support, some are right away, right? So like if you start taking like the Hawthorn shiitake, it could take, the full 60 days to see a difference. But if you start taking the motherwort lavender, you'll probably feel calm in about a half an hour. Right? So it really depends. But some people, it's like they feel a difference in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But the cool thing is every bottle lasts 2 months. And I ask that you at least give it a try for a month, and if not even the full 2 months before you decide that it doesn't work for you, because it takes time, and these aren't pharmaceuticals, right? It's not like an instant thing for a lot of them, and so it takes time for changes to make in your body. I always tell people, it took you quite a while to get this sick, might take you a little bit of time to feel better, right? So just give it some time. Okay, so question: perimenopausal with endo and PCOS, taking your hormone bundle too. Any other suggestions? The pain is rough. Yeah, you're probably dealing with pretty aggressive estrogen dominance if you're dealing with PCOS and endo at the same time. And so while my hormone bundle, which is sold out by the way, is a really good supportive option, I would consider doing two things. I would look into all of the work by Dr. Raymond Pete in regards to estrogen dominance and understanding that. And then after you've read a bit of his work and watched some of his videos, I would also consider getting Progest E, which is something that he made. He's passed away now. He passed away like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. But Progest E, his wife keeps it going, is really fantastic for cycling through progesterone. You need more progesterone to counteract the estrogen dominance, and I really like his Progest E supplement. But I would just kind of read into it a little bit more if you haven't already, and I really suggest, because he's the one who started bringing it to people's attention. A lot of people have spun off of his work or used his work to their advantage to make money, but I would suggest going directly to his website and reading it and watching videos where he is interviewed, so you can actually, get straight from the horse's mouth type of situation. Okay, so how about we talk about the last two synergism capsules, and then I only have 4 things after that to talk about, and then answer some questions and kind of go from there. So first up is my activated charcoal ginger root synergism capsules. Anybody who, these aren't ones that you really have to take every day. You can if you constantly have like loose stools and can't stop shitting your brains out, or if you're dealing with like endotoxins or digestive issues that you're trying to calm down. She's also one of those things where like, I'll hope you have her and never need her, right? Like if you get food poisoning, right? Or like you just ate something sketchy, or you have horrible gas or nausea or anything like that that's not from pregnancy, like you're dealing with like, just like, oh, I just feel horrible. My activated charcoal ginger root synergism capsules are fantastic for that. Now I use coconut shell based charcoal here, not the industrial nasty crap that people use in theirs most of the time, right? Because I don't want you putting like worse things into your body. But it's actually pretty fantastic for supporting to clinging to like heavy metals, endotoxins, bad bacteria, things like that. And then most of you probably know that ginger root is pretty calming for nausea and upset stomach, and I feel like they go together really well. And so you don't have to use her every day, but it's like one of those things, man. I reach for her every now and then when I'm like, I don't know what I ate, but my stomach is upset, and it might not necessarily be food poisoning or whatever, or if my daughter gets a stomach ache or has nausea or something like that, we grab for this. And again, if you were taking it every day, it's just 1 capsule a day. So this bottle will last you 2 months, but if you have to take, it more often, but if you're not taking it every day, it'll last you a lot longer. It's kind of just one of those things where I hope you have it and never need it, but have it in case you need it type of situation. So that's my activated charcoal. And again, everything is just $19.99 or 5 for $80. And then this is my Mullinarishi Synergism capsule. She is really fantastic for anybody who's always constantly dealing with like upper respiratory infections, or you've got asthma, or you quit smoking or anything like that. Mullen is classic for, lung health. But together with reishi, she really kicks up that factor while also supporting your immune system and helping to really open up those airways. Okay, so another question, and I only have 4 more things to talk about. Okay, so let's see. Let me jump down through here. Gout, tart cherry juice will lay off the sweets. Yeah, gout doesn't come from eating carbohydrates. It comes from purines that are in meat. Sugar is not causing gout. So if somebody's dealing with gout, tart cherry juice is a really good option. So is corn silk. But also check your kidney function, and anything that's supportive of kidney function, like dandelion root, is really fantastic for that. What's happening is you're having purines build up in your body, which is mainly found in meat, although it is in vegetables too, which is why people with gout, like my dad, because he only has one kidney because he lost one to cancer, it happens if you eat a lot of meat. But it's not from sugar, it's not from carbohydrates so much as it is from buildup of eating meat and needing to support your kidney function. Somebody said, I tried to buy the skull cap for sleep, but it says something was wrong. Do you take MasterCard? I do, unless it's sold out. I don't think it's sold out, but yeah, I take all types of checkouts. And if it's being stubborn, even if you don't have a PayPal account, you can use PayPal and just check out as a guest and then just use their processing system, or just use it like a normal checkout. And so that usually resolves the issue if your card is fighting you. Question, would your onion and corn silk product help with urinary urgency? It's very likely, because corn silk on its own is really supportive for anybody who has has a problem like going to the bathroom when they don't mean to, right? It's even used for kids who wet the bed, and so it can also help with urgency and things like that. But sometimes, by the way, just so you know, if you feel like you have to pee all the time, sometimes that can be from high cortisol. I know a lot of people don't realize that, but or if you have low magnesium. So those are things to consider looking into. One of my symptoms when I had like stage 3 HPA axis dysfunction, which is where like I had no cortisol in my body during the day and then like a dangerous amount at night, and it shouldn't be that way, right? One of my symptoms was gotta pee, gotta pee, gotta pee, gotta pee constantly, even if there was barely anything coming out, and it was because my body was trying to get the excess cortisol out of my system. So that is something to look into if you haven't. Okay, so you heard those cha-chings. That was somebody calling something home from the shop. Let's talk about these two things together and then those two things. Okay, so first of all, I can't believe it. You guys I've got like maybe 1/4 of the batch left of my hemp oil cayenne salve left. So if you are meaning to grab a jar, it's coming down to the wire, which is crazy because I was like, oh, I'll make a really big batch, and I worked really hard on it. And we put 2,800 jars in the shop, and I'm down to like 400 left. It is absolutely crazy. And right now it's just $19.99 or get 5 for $80. So people are stocking up because the people who depend on this for their pain are not playing. They're like, we don't want to run out. And it's a big fat 4-ounce jar, so it'll last you a long time. So if you are somebody who's dealing with like, painful back, arthritis, knees are hurting you, hands are hurting you, you work long hours, your muscles are sore, your muscles are tired and painful, this is the salve for you. Now, I don't use essential oils in anything I make. This is real herbs. So we are using real cayenne infused into avocado oil here. And now, that is really supportive of blocking the nerves from sending the pain signals. I know that sounds creepy, but it's the way a lot of topical pain stuff works, right? And then I come in here with arnica, which is really good for getting into that muscle type, ligament type pain. And then we go in there with the willow, which is basically like you're putting topical aspirin on, so she's knocking down that inflammation. And to wrap it all up, I'm using real oregano here. People don't think about oregano for pain, but she's really fantastic for stimulating circulation in the area and just really knocking down the inflammation. There's a little bit of a natural analgesic, which means she's kind of got numbing properties like most mints do. So altogether, she is one of my most popular things that I've been making for over a decade. There are 400 plus reviews that you can go read about. You can probably go find somebody who's living something pretty similar to whatever pain you're with, where they're talking about this has helped them at least take the edge off. Now, she's better for topical level pains that you can, like, it's like your shoulder or something's hurting you that you can, get to. If you have really, really deep in the bone pain, I don't know that she can get that far down there. But if it's like your hip right here, you've got painful hands, or your neck or something like that, she is very supportive for that. And she'll never be back at this price again. Nothing will. I mean, $19.99 is not normal for everything in my shop. And you can read more about her, all of the reviews, everything by following the link that my daughter is dropping or the pinned comment if you're watching in the future, any of that type of stuff. Or go directly to sheisofthewoods.org. And these are big, fat 4-ounce jars. And because I don't use essential oils, doesn't really have a smell. Just don't put it on open wounds or get it in your eyes because there is real cayenne in here and that'll burn. And it'll stop bleeding though. Like if you cut yourself a little bit, you're like, oh, if you put that on there, the cayenne will basically stop the blood from flowing if it's not like a life-threatening type wound, you know. Although, just to be transparent, if I did get cut really bad and I had cayenne in my kitchen, put it on there because it'll help stop that blood. It'll like basically cauterize your little blood vessels and stuff. So you could also combine that with my lavender plus magnesium body gel. She's really fantastic for anybody who does have sore muscles, or if you're living with like RLS, which is like restless leg syndrome, and you want to support your magnesium levels and knock out those sore muscles. And I use real lavender here, people, so this doesn't smell like your grandma's bathroom or the gas station bathroom, like that fake lavender soap smell that everybody's just about tired of. So what I do is I take really ultra blue grade lavender buds and we pour boiling distilled water over that and make basically an herbal infusion. And then we take that water and we turn it into a gel. Now I don't use agar or any of that nasty stuff that makes it really sticky on your body. I'm using real plant cellulose, but there's also, we take the same water that we use to make the infusion with, and we make our magnesium oil, which is just where you put a ton of magnesium chloride into the water, and people call it oil, but it's not an oil, it just feels oily, right? And so I worked really hard to make this not sticky, and it has a very gentle lavender smell. Now I've just put a little bit on my arm, and I just did my whole arm. And she smells really nice. It's really good for going to bed in the evening, or just like calming yourself down from a rough day. Plus, your body absorbs magnesium through your skin very, very well. So if you have a hard time taking magnesium supplement, or you have digestive issues, or just getting older in general, it becomes harder to absorb nutrients through your gut, particularly magnesium. So you can work with this topically and make sure that you're getting a good amount of magnesium. And now you'll know you're low if you put this on and it starts to tingle or itch or anything like that. It's because your body is so desperate for magnesium that it's pulling it through your skin at such a fast rate that you actually feel it. So even if you make a magnesium oil at home and you do that, or you take like a magnesium bath, like with magnesium chloride, Epsom salt doesn't really work the same. It doesn't really absorb into your skin. It's not really bioavailable. Great for sore muscles, but it's not the same as magnesium chloride. And you get really itchy. You're not having an allergic reaction. Your body is literally drinking in the magnesium so fast that you feel it. And this big fat bottle will last you quite a while. And it is just $19.99. It's on sale right now. It's like 53% off, and you can get 5 of them for $80 or mix and match anything else that you are interested in. Okay, so I'm going to answer a couple more questions, and then I'll talk about the last 2 things, and then we will wrap up here. Okay, so let's see. Question. Here's a good question. I won't count it as a question though, because can you open your capsules and mix it with water or juice? That I have a hard time swallowing pills. Yeah. So if you have a hard time swallowing pills, you can open them. You can do water, but I would suggest a little bit of applesauce, maybe a little bit of yogurt. I think that would work better, because some of the herbs will be what's called hydrophobic, where they don't want to mix in, right? And it would be kind of like, but with applesauce, it kind of would just hold it together. So that's the case for, most pills are easier if you have to open it, but they're just pure herbs. I don't use any fillers or flow agents or anything like that, so it's fine to open them and add them to whatever you need to be able to take them. You don't have to take them in the capsule. Okay, so question. Temperature is always 96.7. Should I have my thyroid checked because they say it's normal? Yeah, but you should get your own panel done. Most of the time, they're just looking at like T3 or T4. They're not looking at your whole free cycle. They're not looking at your reverse numbers. So like hop online to like Everywell or like walk in labs and find like an extensive thyroid. Now your body temp can be low for other reasons beyond that. Sometimes it's from low vitamin B's, various B's across the board. But if you haven't done like an extensive thyroid panel where they look at like every single angle of your panel, I wouldn't rule out thyroid just yet, right? Because they're so ignorant with only looking at a couple things and they're not looking at like everything, you know. It's just something to definitely look into. Okay, let's see. Question: cleavers is supposed to help with low thyroid. Your thoughts? I don't think so. Um, Cleavers is all about lymphatic support more than anything. I wouldn't really consider her a thyroid supportive herb. Now, they might think that based on the fact that she stimulates your lymphatic function and that by proxy could support your thyroid functioning better, but I would not suggest cleavers as like something that increases thyroid function directly, if that makes sense. If you're looking to support thyroid function with herbs, a really good option is stinging nettle seed. Nettle infusion of the leaf is good too, but the seed would be far more supportive. Shilajit's a good option too in small amounts, you know, but cleavers wouldn't be the first thing I jump to for thyroid support. Okay, so let's see. Selenium is good for thyroid, yeah, in small amounts. Let's see. uh, Temperance, who is lucky enough to watch Ricky while you're on the trip? Okay, so let's see. Ashwagandha is incredible thyroid support. 3 months on, 3 months off, and so on. Be careful with ashwagandha. For those of you who don't know, she incredibly stimulates serotonin, and serotonin is always in conjunction with cortisol. They're both stress-related hormones. So you can really end up doing your body a number by using ashwagandha consistently like that, or even 3 months on, 3 months off. Like you can kind of yo-yo your body. Like she's one of those herbs that like she got real trendy and now people take her for everything and they don't realize, they don't understand like the biochemical actions in the body. And stress hormones always feel better, by the way. If you're really high in cortisol and serotonin at first, you don't really feel anything, or you feel energy and all this stuff, but eventually it crashes. Okay, so my feet kill me, especially at night. What can I take that's natural? Well, I kind of wonder. Sometimes if you have, now hear me out. Sometimes if you have cardiovascular issues, you start having leg pains only at night. And it doesn't mean that your heart is necessarily bad or anything like that. It can just mean that your blood flow isn't moving correctly. And so I would really consider doing two things. You could start working with like hawthorn. Hawthorn would be a really supportive option here. But also I would elevate your bed. Not your pillows, not your headrest, your actual bed. Where you get like a brick that's about like as thick as this box, right? And you put it under the feet of just the head of your bed. So the whole bed is elevated. What that does, first of all, anybody who has sleep apnea or snores or your partner snores, instantly do that. It'll help tremendously. Second of all, if you have cardiovascular issues, it stops the blood from pooling in your feet. Right? So you're not, in nature, we didn't necessarily always sleep flat. We always kind of like we're on a tilt somewhere, and you'd always naturally gravitate to where your head was up top and your feet were on bottom. And so it keeps things moving, elevated, back and forth. I sleep like that. My husband used to snore horribly, and I was just like, no. We only have the bed lifted by that much, and he doesn't snore anymore, right? And it's all just about getting the whole body tilted, which is why it doesn't work to just prop your head, or it has to be the whole bed, right? Not just your body doing that. And so that's something to look into. Another thing is sometimes when people have low magnesium, that's an issue. Foot pain and leg pain can come at night, which is why people use like my magnesium gel if they have RLS. All that stuff is always like magnesium related most of the time. So that's what I would consider. Okay, let's talk about the last two things, and then I'm going to jump off here because my throat is getting sore from talking. So I have my Pit Goop Original. This is fantastic for anybody who's looking for a natural deodorant that doesn't stop you from sweating, but can even work when you already stink. Most deodorants are just, honestly, they're just perfume. They're not a whole lot in there going on, right? And while you can put this on before you stink, and what's really neat is the sulfur fights back against the bacteria buildup, and the unique castor bean extract traps odor on a molecular level. Where she really shines through is for those of us who get really busy and have a real life, end up stinking halfway through the day or at the end of the day, or we just don't have time to take a shower before we have to go do something else. You can put this Pit Goop on already stinking armpits, and within a handful of minutes, you won't stink anymore. And I don't mean it'll cover it up. I don't mean any of that stuff. I mean it will literally absorb the odor on a molecular level. So it stops it from floating out and people smelling it. So I always have one in my purse. And I don't use any sticking agents here, meaning if you put this on, it'll stop you from stinking. And then if you sweat like crazy because something crazy is going on, you might end up smelling yourself eventually because you'll sweat it off, right? Because I don't use chemicals to adhere it to your skin, which, by the way, most deodorants use like literal types of glue to keep it in place, right? Especially the ones that are like protects for 48 hours. It's glued on there, right? But you can put this on again and it'll make the smell go away. And that's really powerful because, for one, it stops you from stinking. You don't have to feel bad about yourself, but also it still allows your body to detox all of the hormones and the amino acids and all the sulfur compounds that want to come out of your armpits. And so that is my Pit Goop, and it's clear. Comes in a roller bottle, has literally no smell at all, and it's water based, so it's not sticky, won't stain your clothes, dries down pretty fast. And then last but not least, my sweet rosemary lash serum is back. So if you have used this before, I know you've already probably snatched it up because you know how fast it goes, but if you've never used this before and you are looking to thicken up your eyelashes or your eyebrows, any of that, she is really fantastic for that. So this is high quality, organic, hexane free castor oil, and then I infuse her with rosemary and comfrey, and basically you just take this and you can put it on your lashes, those are your eyebrows. You can put it on your eyebrows or on the top of your lashes, just like that, all around like that, and she will help stimulate lash growth. She will also strengthen and repair. So the castor oil is pretty good for stimulating hair growth, but then what happens is the rosemary also stimulates the follicles, right? And so then you can take that and combine it with comfrey, which strengthens. So the problem with most people when they're losing lashes is that they're breaking, and the comfrey helps strengthen that. So when they're combined, you're going to get fuller lashes, longer looking lashes because they don't break, and you can also use it on your eyebrows. I actually changed it to the little swipe on applicator because people were using it on their eyebrows so much, not just their lashes, so I wanted to make it easier to do that. And this little bottle is only $19.99. It's on sale for 53% off right now, or you can get 5 for 80, or you can mix and match any 5 things in the apothecary for just 80 bucks, which is basically buy 4 get 1 free. Free shipping kicks it at 100. And this, I'll never be able to sell anything that I've talked about or anything that you're seeing for this low price again. So it is now or never to stock up at these amounts. And it really goes a long way in supporting my capacity to teach freely, to make the change. And actually, the reason I'm having the sale is I'm trying to make a bunch of space for myself so I can step into doing more of these Q&As consistently, starting to write more, making more videos and all that type of stuff, because that's what I really want to do, not spend all of my time running the apothecary. So I'm having this huge sale to take pressure off of myself, and you guys have showed up in an amazing way. I really couldn't have even got this far without you in general over the past 11 years, and every time you have called something home from the shop during the sale, you have, like, I don't know, really shown me like how much you're here with me. And I don't just mean because like money equals support. I just mean like I see that you hear me, and that is like a really big powerful thing for me. I'm trying not to tear up. But it has just been it has been crazy. I mean, we're already sold out of 50% of everything from the shop in just 11 days. And that is just like, I don't even know if we'll make it to the end of October without pretty much everything being gone. So at the same time, I also want you to take advantage of this, because I know that I'll never be able to sell this stuff again. And if Beehive steps in, which is the plan, we're working on it. If Beehive steps in and takes over, they will definitely never be able to sell it this cheap again. So thank you so much for being here with me, folks. If you watched all the way to the end, I love you. You've been here with me, a long time in general, and then, 2 hours in. That's a big deal. So thank you so much for watching, folks. And again, you can go directly to sheisthewoods.org to see everything that I make, or follow the pinned comment link, any of that type of stuff. And if you can't afford to call anything home even during the sale, I understand that. It's also really supportive to comment, share, let people know what's happening, let people know about my sale, about my YouTube channel. All that type of stuff is super supportive. So thank you so much for being here with me, folks, and I will see members this Sunday, which is tomorrow, for the members health only Q&A. So see you later, folks. Bye.